Did you know there's a program that lets you record, edit, and share your videos all within a nice secure class space where students can all interact and record video responses to each other online for free? That's right, I'm talking about Flipgrid, and to find out more, keep on watching. Hello my friends, welcome to EdTech with Adam. Today we're moving on to our second video in the comparison between online recording, editing, and sharing platforms available for teachers. Today we're moving on to the extremely famous Flipgrid. So what we're going to do today, as usual, we have our handy dandy table here. We're going to be looking through this whole list of different features, compliancy, all sorts of good stuff. By the end of the video, hopefully you should leave knowing exactly whether or not Flipgrid is a fit for your teaching and learning environments. Without further ado, let's jump right into it here. So I've logged in to my Flipgrid account, and as you can see, this is kind of the main interface. Now in Flipgrid, you have two major sections. The first thing is your grid. Now a grid can be thought of as your classroom. So if you're teaching a class on, for example, what I do, some English language arts class, maybe English 12, English 11, something like that, you could create one grid for that whole class. Now I also teach ESL, so we're actually going to teach a little ESL lesson today. Let's create an ESL class. So to do that, we're going to click on Add New Grid. And here it's going to ask for a whole bunch of information like, what is your grid name? And I'll say Adam's ESL class. Now, here we have a whole bunch of different options for adding students to the class. Now, if your students are all on a school district email, or they all have some Google School emails or Microsoft emails that are registered to them, you can click on this and that will allow you to enter those in. Now, if you do not and you want to create student accounts, you can click on this option for student IDs. Now at the bottom here, we can also add a name for the class. So for this one, let's just call it Adam's ESL. And that's available, easy peasy. I'll click on next here. Now for this one here, it's going to ask for you to either upload a CSV or comma separated values spreadsheet with your students' information on it, or you can manually add students one by one. Now the reason I'm showing you this is because later on we'll be talking more about FIPA and FERPA compliancy. And one thing about that is storing students' personal information such as names. Now, if you choose this option, it will ask you to put in the student's information. Keep in mind that means you'll be putting their personal information into this system. That could qualify as FERPA compliant, but as I learned at a recent conference where I met with some representatives from Microsoft, Flipgrid, all of the data is stored on American servers, so it is definitely not FIPA compliant. So it's very important to know this. Now, I don't want to do this, so I'm going to show you another way that we can do this that's a little bit more compliancy friendly. So let's click on back. And this time, let's click on Educator Learning Community. Now, if we do this, it creates a public grid where anyone with a link can come in. But as you will see in a moment, the good thing is that students can choose nicknames or other names to protect their privacy. Of course, you'll want them to tell you what their nicknames or what names they choose are so that you can go through and find their assignments. But it is, in terms of compliancy, a much safer option. So let's click on Next. Now it's going to give me an option to add a password. And this is important because, again, when you choose that last option that we just looked at here, if you choose the Educator Learning Community, it creates a public grid which anyone can join. But if you add a password here, then random people cannot just come in. Only your students who you've shared the password with can enter and participate. So I'm not going to add a password here. I'm just going to fly ahead and click on Next. And here we go. It tells me what my grid is. It gives the address and all of that stuff. I'm going to click on Go to My Grid. And here we go. We can add pictures. We can do all kinds of stuff. And we also get a topic. Now, a topic is the second part of the two parts I was talking about earlier. And this is kind of like a lesson. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to create a lesson on comparative grammar in English. So this is something that I often go over with my ESL students. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to, in my topic area, click on Add New Topic. And I already have a bunch of stuff prepared here that I'm going to copy and paste from another source. So I'm going to fast forward as I do that really quickly. All right, so I've pasted that in. And as you can see, if you already have lessons prepared that you want your students to engage with interactive video on, you can easily just take that, copy, Control-C, paste, Control-V, or right-click, whatever you like, and it's just that easy. It's all ready to go. Now I'm going to select a recording time. My students, I think they'll probably take about 5 minutes. What this does is it gives them a time limit so they don't talk too long, but at the same time, keep in mind that the default here at 1:30 might be too short for what you're asking your students to do. And as you can see here, I'm asking my students to watch an introduction video, read the guide, and then make 5 sentences. And for my students, 1:30 is nowhere near enough. So I'm going to give them a full 5 minutes and let them know ahead of time that they have 5 minutes. And now, as you noticed in my description here, I said I'm going to make an introduction video. So that's very simple, and that's going to give us a chance to check out some of the other features that Flipgrid has. So let's click on record a video here. And just as a side note, these are all other little stimuli that you can use to get the students engaged with the topic at hand. So that could be a YouTube video, it could be maybe a link to a TED Talk, it could be a video that you have from perhaps a previous lesson, pictures, whatever it is. I'm going to use a video prompt to get my students excited and engaged in this topic. So let's get started with that. Let's click on record a video. So if you get this message, there are 2 things you're going to want to check. First of all, in your Chrome browser, look at the top here. On the top right, there's a little camera icon, and you need to double check to make sure that it says continue allowing this address to access your microphone and camera. Mine is already clicked. So then the other reason that this might happen is because in Windows, there's a setting that can turn your microphone off or stop external sources from accessing it. So all you need to do for that is go into your search bar and search for microphone privacy settings. And here you want to make sure that it says on. So we have microphone privacy off and on. So this allows all the apps to access our microphone and our camera and things like that. All right, so I've double checked all my settings. Now everything's up and running. You can see I see my face here on my other camera. And what we're going to do here is we can see that there are a whole bunch of little filters and stickers that we can add. I'm just going to focus on a few of these here. First of all, in filters, we can change the color of the background of the whole image. But what's important here, and one of the things on our table, is being able to blur out faces. Now this is important, again, for respecting student privacy. Perhaps there is a certain thing that you don't want to show. Maybe you want to let people hear the sound, but at the same time, you don't want to show something in particular, or maybe you're playing a game. This is a really cool and also important feature for a lot of things, especially now we're talking a lot about social justice these days. So that's that. I'm going to turn off the filters. There are also ways we can type on the screen. We can put little emojis or stickers on there. We can write on the screen, whatever you want to write in here. We can do all kinds of things here. We can turn the whole thing into a whiteboard. So we're doing kind of a shared whiteboard sort of feature. And in that case, you're not recording yourself. You would only be recording a whiteboard. But we're not going to do that today. I'm going to turn off the whiteboard. And we're not going to be putting any custom pictures or stickers here. What we're going to do is look at something else which is on our table, which is really cool. It's a brand new feature on Flipgrid. It's screencasting. So now you can actually screencast. It's still in the beta, but it works quite well. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the screencast to make my engagement video for my students. So let's click on this screen recording, and I'm going to click on start screen capture, and it's going to be filming myself, and it's going to be filming my screen very easily, very simply. So let's click on this, and it's going to let me choose what I'm going to share. I'm going to share my Chrome, and here we go. 3, 2, 1. Jump over to my window here. Hello, my wonderful students. Today we're going to be talking about some comparative grammar, and we're going to walk through this step by step. We'll talk about, For example, some of the comparative adjectives, we'll talk a little bit about superlatives, but our focus today is on comparatives. So these are things that I'd like you to talk about in your video. Okay, so I'm all done recording my video. I'm going to jump back over to the Flipgrid window here, and I'm going to click stop recording. So this is going to show us the whole thing here. Now, similar to YouTube mobile version, we can edit the clip. However, to do that, we have to click on the timeline, and we can only trim from each side. So we can't trim in the middle. So again, this is like YouTube mobile version, but unlike the YouTube desktop version, we cannot trim in between. So as you noticed in the beginning, I made a few mistakes, and I'm just going to cut forward to where I jumped up to the top of my document because I didn't start at the right place. And I'll go back over here, and maybe there's a bit at the end that I didn't really like. I'll cut some of this off, and I'm going to click on confirm. There we go. It cut it for me. It's all ready to go. I'm going to click on next. And now it'll ask me to take a selfie for my class and maybe a selfie for my students. Here we go. All right, and maybe I'll add a sticker just for fun. Here we go. Oh, this one looks great. Excellent. Perfect. I'm sure my students will love this. And then I'm going to click on next. And here we go. The video is getting prepared and it is done. So this is really cool because unlike YouTube, where we have to wait for many, many minutes in between processing times, in Flipgrid, everything is done very quickly. Now, one small caveat is this does depend a bit on your internet connection. Flipgrid does record in quite a smaller format size, so this means that even if your internet connection isn't the best, you should still be able to record it quite quickly. However, if you do not have a great internet connection, it can still really adversely affect it and make you a little frustrated, same as your students as well who might be using it. All right, so I've made my engagement video with my lovely sticker there. I have my whole lesson ready in my instructions. Now I'm going to just click create topic, and it's going to give me a link that I can share with my students. I can click copy here and email it out to them, or I can share it into Google Classroom, on Remind, Microsoft Teams, a lot of different things that we can share it on. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Click on all set. And here we go. So this is all ready for my students to come in and participate on. So when my students come in, they'll see this, and the students will be able to come in and click record a response here. So let's pretend we're one of the students here recording a response and see what it kind of looks like. So students will go in, click on this. They'll get a recording window similar to what we had just a moment ago for the teachers. The same options, so students can also do screencasting and things like that. And the students can come in and do their 5 sentences. So we'll come in and I'm going to click record. My building is taller than my mother's building. There we go. So I've finished my sentences. I'll click on next. It'll give me the same cutting options. I'm just going to click on next here. I can get my selfie. Click on next. And now this is the cool thing I was mentioning earlier about privacy. Your students here could write a different display names. They could write their names, they could write a nickname, but in any case, since they're not writing their full names, then this could be sort of a loophole for going around some of the privacy compliancy issues that you might face otherwise. Give it a title, my homework for comparatives, and a link if you want. I'm just going to click submit a video here. Congratulations, thank you. And here we go. Then we see our students' video responses here. Now, when students go onto this video, they'll be able to see this kind of thing, and they'll also be able to make a response by clicking on reply. So this is a really cool thing. Now, as a teacher, you get a little bit of extra stuff here. You can grade, all kinds of stuff like that. I'm not a big fan of the grading thing, but here what you can do for comments, you can write written comments, you can give video feedback as a teacher here. So there's a whole bunch of really cool stuff that we can do in Flipgrid here. And again, it's very lightweight, very cool, very easy to use. So let's exit out of here and let's talk a little bit about the rest of our table. So other than only being able to cut and trim from either end and not being able to overlay any sound like we could in some of the other platforms, however, one thought that occurred to me is that if you had another sound source next to you while you're recording your video, you could potentially get around this by that. But in the program, there is no option for that, so I'm not including this. And another thing, they don't have green screen capability yet. You can see I have a green screen here, which could have been used, but there's nothing we can do with it. Now for compliancy, as we already mentioned, it's not FIPA compliant. It could be FERPA compliant, but again, this is something that depends on your school district, depends on your IT staff, depends on your school policies. This is something you'll need to take up with your IT staff in order to verify. Now, similar to YouTube, because this is backed by Microsoft, there is a whole bunch of interoperability built into Flipgrid. You can use it in Canvas officially, and of course in Google Classroom. Now they say here, as you can see on the page, that they're also available in all other learning management systems. I haven't found enough proof to really back that up, but in a worst case scenario, what you can do is actually paste the link to the Flipgrid page from your classroom, and then students can access it that way, even if it's not something available right through their LMS. The only downside, of course, is that that means students have to go in and be added to your class, or you have to try to take attendance to find out who is participating. It's kind of annoying, so that's a little unfortunate. Finally, in terms of the cost, it's free to use since 2018. However, I just want to point out that before 2018, it cost $1,000 a year for schools and cost about $63 to $65 per year for educators. Now, whether or not Microsoft is going to bring back this pricing policy, who's to tell? I'm just going to try to be objective and say I'm not sure what's going to happen, but if history tells us what will happen in the future, typically at some point they might start charging for this. In any case, that's it for this video. Please remember to like and subscribe and share this with your colleagues who you think might enjoy this. And as always, I'm Adam, your personal EdTech specialist, and stay healthy.